Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery. It's a beautiful Thursday morning, April 21st, 2022. We get together with our distribution partners most weekday mornings at this time to talk about strategies, tips, techniques, share success stories, but primarily we're here to support each of you. Today, you should be seeing on the screen our cheapbusinessaddress.com website. And we're going to talk kind of at a high level first, why it's important that you and I help small businesses get a unique commercial address. And then we'll talk about how you can monetize it, how you can financially benefit. So in general, well, let's at the highest level, what is it that you and I do as technical advisors? We help small businesses build their financial literacy. That's number one. Number two, we help them build lender compliant loan packages. And number three is we help them become credible enough on paper to be able to raise the capital that they want and need. So those are the three things that you and I do. When we're talking about how does one become credible on paper, it's the same thing that you and I learned in school. It comes down to the 3 C's. Or really, there's more than 3 C's, so we're going to add the fourth today. So we'll talk about the 4 C's. So this is not a matter of opinion. Doesn't really matter what you think. Doesn't really matter what I think. But just as a matter of fact, how does a business establish credibility on paper, whereby lenders and extenders of credit are willing to take the risk on them? Number one is credit. Does the small business or the business have established business credit? Second is cash flow. Does the business have the demonstrated cash flow to service the debt? Number three, collateral. Is there collateral available that will mitigate the risk of the lender in case the borrower defaults? And the fourth is commercial address. That's what we're talking about today, is a commercial address. Now, let's talk about the spectrum of addresses. When you and I or anyone else starts a new business, you typically file with the Secretary of State. You could file with the county if you're just doing a DBA or assumed name, but let's assume that we're starting an LLC, C Corp, or S Corp. So that would be filed with the respective Secretary of State. At that time of filing, an address is submitted. That becomes the official address of the business. So often, the majority of time, in fact, what you and I will see is that small business owners will file the Secretary of State paperwork, the formation documents, and use their home address because it's convenient, right? They have a home address. Let's use that. Well, if what you and I are trying to do, back to the larger view, is try to separate the person from the business, try to position the business to be as credible on paper as possible, how would we think that the business looks credible if the address is that of the owner versus a separate address? So as we look at the continuum of addresses, at the far left end, I guess, what's the worst address that a business can have? Probably a P.O. box, and it could even be a mailbox. But if it's just a rental box as the official address, that is going to typically be seen as the highest risk. Does that mean that the person's bad, the business is bad, the business is up to no good? Of course not. But if you were going to form a business that's up to no good, you'd probably use a post office box as the address so they couldn't come knock on your door. So using a post office box, mailbox, even if we get creative and make it look like a suite number, that is the worst of all possible choices. Then the next one up would be to use a home address. Well, homes are legitimate, right? You live there and maybe you own it, maybe you rent it. But again, not again, but I haven't specified this today. All addresses are in a database, the United States Postal Service database. And so you can't fool the system. Every address is coded. Some addresses are coded as mailbox centers. That was what we just talked about. Some addresses are coded as residential addresses. So you can call it your business address, but if it's coded as a residential address, then that is a credibility issue. So working from the least credible to the most. So the least credible would be to have a post office box, a mailbox. We've talked about that. The second least credible would be to use a home address, just because it's not separating the person from the business, and we're not going to be able to get some types of capital using a home address. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. The next step up would be a virtual address. Virtual addresses are like the Regus, the WeWorks of the world that really grew in popularity. The problem with those is that they're typically a shared address. We used to, when we first got started, we leased with Regus. And with Regus, we were in Suite 400, but we didn't really have an office there. It was just the office address. Was that Regus building, Suite 400, coded as a commercial address? It was in the United States Postal Service database. So check that box. But the problem is that Regus used that same suite number, Suite 400, literally, with lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of other businesses. So was that credible? No, because it's a shared address. So at the least risky, the most preferable, what we really should be educating small businesses that they should strive for, it's not all or nothing, but it's the most credible, is a unique commercial address. So unique means that no one else has that address. It's not like that Suite 400 example from a moment ago where it is a commercial address, but it's shared. It would be a unique address that only one business uses that address. Let's say Trump Tower in New York City. So the street address, whatever it is, I don't know, 123 Wall Street, we'll say, is the street address. Well, there's a big tower. Are there lots of tenants? Are there lots of addresses at that example, 123 Wall Street? Of course. But each suite has one business in it, or should. So that is the way that you and I can help small businesses become the most credible. And this is addressed in the 27 mistake training video that we start all clients with when they go through the 4-week curriculum. A unique commercial address is desirable and, frankly, in some cases, required. When I say required, again, it doesn't, no offense, it doesn't matter what you think, and it doesn't matter what I think. It's just a matter of fact. Some sources of capital, like building business credit, building up your Dun & Bradstreet profile, and Experian business and Equifax business, we need to have a commercial address, and ideally a unique commercial address. Well, now we've got a problem, right? You and I are dealing primarily with startup and early stage businesses, and maybe they don't have the funds, or maybe they don't have the need to go occupy space. They're just fine working from home. And since the pandemic, that's grown in popularity. Lots of people work from home. What you and I are talking about today isn't where they work from. It doesn't matter if they work in their underwear in the back bedroom. We're talking about how credible does the business look? What is the official address on file? Now, when we talk about the official address on file, we need to recognize that that has a couple applications. So the official address on file means what address is on file with the Secretary of State, which we've talked about, what address is on file with the IRS, and that happens when you get your EIN number, and then also what address is on file with your bank. So those four are crucial. I'm sorry, those three are crucial to match up, and they really should be a unique commercial address. So that's the backdrop. Now we're going to talk briefly about our cheap business address, but we want to quickly pivot to how you can be part of this network and monetize it. So what we decided to do last year is we used to lease. So most recently, before we bought this building I'm sitting in now, we leased from the Chamber of Commerce. We grew, so we ended up leasing the whole entire floor. And so we continue to grow. We proposed to the Chamber to buy the building, which was a former bank that was gifted to the Chamber. They wouldn't consider selling it. So we hired a realtor, found a property, made an offer, and we bought a commercial property. And so that's what we did. Once we bought that commercial property, then we set up the cheap business address. Therefore, we offer to clients very affordably a unique address that meets the criteria that we've been talking about, because it creates credibility. And so that is where this site comes into play. And so we also help those clients that are using the cheap business address build business credit, because you need a unique business address to build out business credit optimally. Why is business credit important? Well, you want to try to separate personal from business, and you can use business credit to buy things for your business that doesn't reflect on your personal credit. Over the past couple of years, we've bought 2 company vehicles. We bought a BMW X5M, freaking awesome car, under the EIN of the business, using business credit, business financing. I think that one was with Ally Financial. They'll do auto loans under the EIN. And then also bought a work truck, Dodge Power Wagon, incredible vehicle. And so that was through, I think that one was with Chase Commercial Financing. So for example, you could get credit cards under your business. You can get auto loans under your business. You can get different trade accounts. And once your business credit is strong enough, you can even get loans under your EIN. Furthermore, there are some types of just general loans that have a strong preference to the client having a commercial address. And frankly, SBA loans, some SBA loans fit into that. The reason that general business loans would like, well, I guess why business lenders to offer a business loan would care about a commercial address is, in some cases, they'll place a lien against the business. So if the borrower should not repay, that the lender has first right of the property of the business. And so as terrible as it sounds, literally they would be able to go put a padlock on the business and say, okay, all the assets within that building or that space is now the property of the lender. And of course, we don't want to worry about worst case scenario, but there's just reasons why a unique commercial address creates increased access to capital. So we've done this and it's worked well. And frankly, it pays for the mortgage and it pays for our expenses of the building because we have enough tenants that are paying. So here's what's in it for you. We recently announced that we're going to be opening branch offices. We want to have a branch office in each county. There's no cost to do that. A number of you have already put a deposit down, $250 deposit to hold your county. So now we're moving forward. But part of that is to expand the cheap business address network. So we can work with you to either help you buy a commercial building in your community, or you could, I guess, just lease it. But from that, then add it to the cheap business address network. Then clients that don't have a legitimate, unique commercial address can sign up with you. They'll pay you $99 a month. We'd like to go with standardized pricing, and then that's what we charge right now. And you would keep all of that. So it's an easy mathematical formula. So what is your monthly overhead, including your lease, your insurance, your taxes, and so forth? Divide that by 100, and that's how many tenants you would need, virtual tenants. So with a cheap business address concept, it's not that they have a place to come in and have a cup of coffee and use the Wi-Fi. It is a legitimate, unique commercial address, but it's virtual in nature. They don't come showing up at the place. Therefore, you don't necessarily have to have an exquisite grade A property. What we bought a pretty large piece of land that has an existing structure, but we're working on erecting an office building on the open area. And so that works fine because we have space to work in now. It is revenue positive. because we have more tenants in the cheap business address than the cost of the mortgage, of the taxes, of the insurance. We have positive cash flow coming through. And so we're literally able to get the funding now to erect a really awesome office building. So with that, I'd like to open it up to your questions or concerns. We've gone through a couple layers here. So let me summarize, and then we'll start fielding your questions, comments, concerns in the chat box, or the question and answer box, which is like chat of Zoom. So first, what we did is we talked about the relevance of the 4 C's if we want to borrow money. One of those 4 C's is having a unique commercial address. We've talked about why having a unique commercial address is important in accessing capital. We've talked about how we have set that up and proven the model. And maybe most importantly, we've talked about how we invite you to participate in this, whereby we can add you to the Cheap Business Address Network by you having a branch office, and there's no cost. You're not buying a franchise or anything like that. We'll work with you to have the capital, minimum of $100,000 for working capital. Obviously, if you're buying a building, you would need more than that. And then you can have a branch office that is like a flag in the sand in your community to be able to help clients with the financial literacy, the building of the loan package, helping them become credible on paper. And one element of that is being able to offer the Cheap Business Address. So you'd be part of this network, and there's no cost. We're not trying to sell you anything. Those clients would each pay you the $100 a month, technically $99 a month, but we'll just round it off. And so you keep 100% of that. With that revenue coming in, then that will offset the cost of the mortgage or the lease if you're leasing, the insurance, the taxes, and most likely you might even hire a property manager that handles the leasing, handles getting the mail out, and so forth. So with that, who has questions, comments, concerns? Because you can't ignore this. Helping clients have a unique commercial address is an important part of being credible on paper. They can certainly come to us and we can get them a cheap business address. That's fine. But even better than that, you can participate in this model, no cost, not trying to sell anything. And so then you'll have cheap business addresses that you're able to make available to the clients that you're working with in your community. Right now, we only own 1 building. I don't even think we'll buy more buildings, so I didn't state that very well. Right now, and in the future, I guess, we own 1 building. We chose the specific location because it's in the geographic area for the Chapman Fund, which is a tax-based fund program. It's not a bank loan. It's almost a gimme. But we've talked about it before. The downside is it only goes up to $250,000. It's based on the geographic area. But now what we want to do is have multiple addresses across the country. We want to have 1 address per county, and that address would come through the branch offices that we've talked about recently. And so if you'd like to have a branch office, there's no cost to have a branch. We need to find out the county and state that you would like to have exclusivity on, and then we need to hold that for you and then work with you on building out the finances to operationalize it. So a lot we covered. What questions, comments, concerns do any of you have about what we covered today? And at the most basic element is to increase awareness that having a unique commercial address is important in terms of looking more credible on paper for the small business. Questions, comments, concerns? Got a big group today, which is exciting. Sharon's got a question. Go ahead and type it into the Q&A, Sharon. Anyone else have questions, comments, concerns on why having a unique commercial address adds to the credibility of the business, allows the business to more so stand alone from the business owner, allows us to access certain types of capital under the EIN, such as company vehicles, such as company credit cards, such as trade lines, and even business loans. Who has questions, comments, concerns on that? All right, well, we'll give it just a minute to see if any questions come up. Otherwise, I think we've got it covered for today. This is not new information. We're just going back and reiterating the importance, because you and I as technical advisors, what we need to be doing is improving financial literacy. And the number one reason why most small businesses don't get approved for funding is what? They don't look credible enough on paper. And so you and I can help them improve their collateral through the collateral support program. We can improve their business credit. And frankly, that's included free here. We can help them increase their cash flow. And of course, we can provide the commercial address for that element of credibility. Any other questions, comments, concerns on today's topic? All right, Joseph's asking a good question. And so in general, you don't really need to go pitch this. If you continue to drive people into either access to capital or the free 4-week funding program, they're going to go through the 4-week curriculum. We're going to understand more about the business and identify where there are credibility gaps. And this is a credibility gap that we'll often see in early stage businesses. They do not have a unique commercial address. If that's the case, then our approach as a mentor is just to educate them. Hey, you don't look as credible on paper as you could or maybe should. It's going to likely impact your access to capital. You may want to consider getting a unique commercial address. Don't want to use a post office box. Don't want to use a shared office address like a Regis. It's important that you have your own unique physical address. We can provide that through the Cheap Business Address. And then those of you that are coming aboard, like Pauline in South Carolina and others, those of you that are going to have branch offices, this will be integrated into that. Very valuable, very valuable. Questions, comments, concerns? All right, well, thanks everyone. We'll see you back tomorrow morning. Appreciate your time this morning. Bye-bye.